Have you ever wondered how over 130 million people worldwide struggle with substance addiction, yet so many of their stories stay hidden, especially in Hollywood? From Elton John's near-fatal use of illegal chemicals to Colton Haynes' quiet battle with pills behind the cameras. Here are 25 gay celebrities who were huge addicts. 1. Elton John. Elton John looked like he had it all: fame, fortune, and fans all around the world. But while people were cheering for him on stage, something darker was happening behind the scenes. He wasn't just enjoying a fun rock star lifestyle. He was drowning in substances and alcohol. One of them specially became his way of escaping stress, sadness, and fear. He drank until he couldn't remember anything. At first, no one around him said anything. They were scared to upset him or didn't care enough. He was making money, and that seemed more important. But it started to show. He became angry, tired, and lost control of his life. Friends left, his health failed, and his emotions were all over the place. By 1990, Elton couldn't hide it anymore. He had to make a choice: keep going and possibly die, or fight for his life. He chose to get help. It wasn't easy. Recovery was hard, and staying sober took everything he had, but he did it. He has stayed clean since then. He turned his life around and started the Elton John AIDS Foundation to help others. But the truth is, it all could have ended badly. He could have died young, like so many others. The fame didn't save him. In fact, it made things worse. 2. Freddie Mercury. Freddie Mercury had a voice that could shake stadiums. His energy on stage was something the world had never seen before. But when the lights went out, things looked very different. Behind the makeup and music, Freddie was hurting. He lived in a world that didn't accept who he really was. Being gay in the music business back then wasn't easy. He hid his feelings, and that pain grew over time. He started using substances and drinking heavily. People thought it was just rock star behavior, but it was more than that. He was escaping something much deeper. His life became a roller coaster of concerts, wild parties, and secrets. He smiled for the cameras, but those close to him saw the truth. Freddie was slipping. The substances numbed his emotions, and the alcohol covered the pain. Fame made it harder to ask for help. People around him either didn't care or didn't want to ruin their own careers by speaking up. He was trapped in his own world, even while millions sang his song. He worked until the end, even as his health got worse. He didn't talk about his sickness until it was almost too late. AIDS took him down fast, but the years of addiction had already done damage. Freddie gave everything to his fans, but no one could give him peace. He was hurting, and nobody saved him. His life was full of sound and color, but his heart was often dark and tired. 3. Colton Haynes. Colton Haynes looked perfect on screen. He had a glowing smile, strong roles in hit TV shows like Teen Wolf and Arrow, and fans who loved him. But behind the good looks and bright lights, his life was falling apart. Colton felt trapped by Hollywood's fake world. He hid his true self for years, scared that being openly gay would ruin his career. That pressure built up until he couldn't take it anymore. He turned to alcohol and pills to feel better, or at least to feel nothing. It worked for a while. Then things got worse. He couldn't sleep, couldn't think, and couldn't stop. At parties, he looked like he was having fun, but he was just trying to stay alive. He woke up many mornings feeling sick, ashamed, and scared. No one around him seemed to notice, or maybe they didn't care. His addiction took control, and it almost destroyed him. When he came out in 2016, people thought he would finally be free, but his addiction only grew stronger. He had to hit rock bottom before he finally spoke out in 2019. He told the world how bad things had gotten. He had almost lost everything. 4. John Grant. John Grant is known for his powerful music, but behind every song is a painful story. His voice carries truth, and that truth is full of struggle. In his early days with the band The Czars, John battled deep pain. He didn't feel like he belonged. Being a gay man in a music world that still judged him made things worse. He used alcohol and substances to make it through the days. He didn't want to feel lonely, judged, or ashamed. The substances gave him a fake kind of comfort, but that comfort didn't last. He felt broken inside and tried to cover it with more drinking and more substances. His career started to suffer. His body felt weak and his spirit was tired. People saw him perform, but didn't see how much pain he carried when the show was over. He needed help, but the help didn't come right away. He had to fight for it himself. He finally got sober and started making music that told the full truth about addiction, about being gay, about living with HIV. His songs are raw and honest because they come from real hurt. 5. Joey Stefano. Joey Stefano's face was everywhere in the adult film world during the late 1980s and early 1990s. He became a star fast, but that fame came with a heavy cost. Off camera, Joey was in serious pain. He came from a hard childhood and found himself alone in a tough industry. Dangerous substances became a daily habit. They were easier to get than love or support. He was praised for his looks, but ignored for his cries for help. His addiction was no secret. People in the industry saw it, but no one did much. He was used and then forgotten. Joey's life was spinning out of control. At only 26, he died from a substance overdose. A life with so much potential was cut short. His death didn't surprise many who knew him. It shocked no one because they had already watched him fall. But why didn't anyone stop it? Why did people let him fade away while still making money off his body? He needed someone to care, someone to help, but that help never came. He became another sad story in a world that moves on fast. Logan Lynn. Logan Lynn is a singer and mental health advocate today, but his past is filled with struggle. As a young artist, he felt lost and alone. Being gay, trying to make it in music, and fighting mental illness all at once was too much. He started using substances and drinking heavily. It became a daily habit. Fame made things worse. The pressure to be perfect was heavy, and there was no space for weakness. He didn't just fall into addiction, he sank deep and fast. He speaks now about the days when he didn't want to wake up. The substances helped him forget how much he hated himself. He needed love and peace, but found poison instead. His music now talks about those dark times, about how close he came to losing everything. He got help, but only after years of pain. Now he uses his voice to speak for those still stuck in silence. He tries to help others feel seen. Dean Johnson. Dean Johnson was hard to miss. He was tall, bold, and full of energy. People in New York's nightlife knew his name. His music, clothes, and wild parties made him famous in the club scene. He was openly gay and proud, never hiding who he was. But behind the wild shows and bright lights, there was another story. One he didn't talk about much. Dean was hooked on substances. At first, it looked like he had it all. People loved his performances. He was living fast, always moving from party to party, club to club. But all that excitement came with a price. Dean used substances to keep up with the fast life. He needed energy. He wanted to feel free. He didn't think about the harm. The more famous he got, the more he used. And the more he used, the harder it became to stop. Friends noticed he was changing. He looked tired. He started missing events. People whispered that something was wrong, but nothing changed. Dean kept pushing, hoping the next show would fix everything. But it didn't. By 2007, everything caught up to him. He was only 46 when he was found dead in a Washington hotel. The cause? A substance overdose. Just like that, his light went out. The clubs went quiet. His fans were shocked. A man who once filled rooms with energy and music died alone, caught in a fight he couldn't win. Fame didn't save him. Friends couldn't save him. The substances took everything. 8. Scott Thorson. Scott Thorson became famous for being the young man beside the older showman, Liberace. The glitz and glamour looked fun from the outside. Fancy houses, cars, diamonds. But Scott's life wasn't golden. It was breaking behind the curtain. Being with Liberace gave him money and fame, but also pressure and control. He was pushed to change how he looked, even going through surgery. He wasn't just being himself anymore. He was becoming someone Liberace wanted him to be. And when the love ended, so did the fake safety. He was left alone, with pain, confusion, and a heavy need for escape. That's when the substances took hold. Scott turned to substances fast and hard. He didn't slip. He fell. He was trying to forget everything, the lies, the control, the loneliness. The substances became his only way to feel better, even for a short time. But it didn't help. It only made everything worse. He started getting into trouble, legal problems, health scares, court dates, jail time. He tried to clean up. He even wrote a book, hoping to tell his side and start again. But the damage was deep. He couldn't run from the past, and the substances were always waiting. In August 2024, he died at 65. His last years were full of more headlines about health and crime than healing. His story wasn't just about fame. It was about what happens when someone is used, changed, and thrown aside. He tried to stay standing, but the world around him was too heavy. 9. George Michael. George Michael had a voice that people knew around the world. He sold millions of albums. He sang songs that topped the charts for years. But even as he smiled in public, he was dealing with a much darker life behind closed doors. George was battling with substances for a long time. The more he tried to keep his image clean, the more he hid his pain. He used substances like cannabis and prescription pills. They made him feel better, just for a while. But then came the crashes, the arrests, the moments that shocked his fans and left people asking what was going on. George crashed his car more than once. He was found in strange places. He was arrested multiple times. People began to see that something wasn't right. Even with his fame, he couldn't escape the pull of substances. His addiction was real and dangerous. People in his circle tried to help, but the fight was too big. Fame didn't give him peace. It gave him pressure. Being famous only made it harder to ask for help. And when help came, it was too late. In 2016, George died at 53. The world cried. The news said it was natural causes, but fans remembered all the warning signs. His talent was huge, but his troubles were just as big. He didn't get the happy ending people hoped for. His life became another reminder that behind fame, some stars are hurting more than we know. 10. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston had one of the greatest voices in history. She could sing like no one else. People everywhere loved her music, but her real life was full of pain. Fame came fast and strong. Everyone wanted something from her, her team, her family, her fans. And in the middle of it all, she felt lost. People talked about her close friend, Robin Crawford, but the world focused more on her marriage and her troubles. Whitney started using substances to feel something, anything, besides the weight of everything crashing in. Her addiction grew over time. At first, she hid it, but soon everyone knew. Her voice began to change. Her performances became shaky. She looked tired. She missed shows. She canceled tours. But no one could reach her. She was stuck in a cycle. The substances were her escape and her trap. Friends tried to help. She tried to help herself, but it was always a losing fight. In 2012, she was found dead in a hotel bathtub. She was just 48. The cause was drowning, but all the hard stuff she had been consuming and heart disease played a role. People were heartbroken. A voice like hers, gone forever. But her story wasn't just about talent. It was about pressure, silence, and pain. 11. Amy Winehouse. Amy Winehouse was young, raw, and full of talent. Her voice had power and sadness all at once. Her songs told the truth about her life, about heartbreak and feeling broken. But Amy's pain wasn't just in her music. It was in her real life too. She drank too much. She used substances, and she did it all in front of the world. Cameras followed her everywhere. People watched her fall apart, but few helped. They turned her pain into entertainment. She was only 27 when she died. That number alone says so much. She had years ahead of her, but alcohol poisoned her body. Her liver failed. Her heart stopped. She was alone. The fame didn't protect her. The fans couldn't save her. She needed help, but the help came too late. Her parents, her friends, they tried. But addiction is a storm, and Amy was caught in the middle. People say Amy was a tragedy, and they're right. But not just because she died young. Because she showed all the signs and no one really stepped in. Because her fall was so public, but still so ignored. She didn't hide her pain. She sang it. And we clapped. We watched. We moved on. 12. Liza Minnelli. Liza Minnelli was born famous. Her mom was Judy Garland. That meant lights, cameras, and pressure before she could even walk. People expected her to shine, and for a while, she did. Her voice was strong. Her shows were packed. She smiled for the cameras, but behind the stage, Liza was tired. She was hurting. She leaned on pills and alcohol to get through the pain, to feel normal, to stay awake, to fall asleep. The spotlight didn't feel warm. It burned. Her problems weren't hidden. They were everywhere. News stories, gossip, rehab visits. She spoke about her addiction. She said she was trying, and maybe she was, but it was a long fight, the kind that doesn't end with just one stay in a clinic. Liza kept going, show after show, but each time she was carrying more weight, more memories, more regret. Fame didn't make her strong, it made her tired. Liza became a symbol of survival. But what does that really mean? That she kept singing while her body broke down? That she smiled while hurting inside? People called her brave. Maybe she was. But bravery shouldn't mean living with so much pain just to keep the world entertained. Her story is about more than just talent. It's about what it takes to stay alive in a world that only loves you when you're performing. 13. Boy George. Boy George was once everywhere. He wore makeup, wild clothes, and had a voice that people loved. With Culture Club, he became a huge star. But something was going wrong behind the bright lights and loud music. Boy George was starting to rely on substances. It didn't start big, a little here, a little there, but soon it grew into something much worse. Illegal substances became a daily habit. He didn't just party. He used substances to feel better inside, and the more he used, the more it hurt him. He began to lose control of his life. His face showed the stress. His voice, once full of life, started to crack. Fans didn't know the full story at first, but it couldn't stay hidden forever. One day, Boy George was arrested. The news shocked many. How could someone so famous fall so hard? But it didn't stop there. He went in and out of rehab, trying to clean up. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Each time people wondered if he would make it. He later spoke about how deep he had fallen. His words were clear. Substances nearly ruined everything. He had to fight hard to get back. And while he did manage to come back, the scars never fully faded. He now uses his story to help others, but people still remember the hard times. They remember the mugshots, the headlines, and the tears. 14. RuPaul. Today, RuPaul is seen as strong, powerful, and in control. But that wasn't always true. Long before RuPaul's Drag Race became a hit, he was struggling. In his younger years, RuPaul faced pain that many didn't see. He felt like he didn't belong. and that pain led him to drink and use substances. It wasn't just to have fun, it was to block out the hurt. Each night he would use more, hoping the feelings would go away. But they didn't. The lights on stage were bright, but his thoughts were dark. He smiled for the cameras, but inside, things were breaking. He started to lose his way. People around him saw the change. Friends tried to help, but it wasn't easy. RuPaul didn't want to stop. For a while, it felt like substances were the only thing that worked. But it didn't last. His body grew weak. His mind was tired. He knew something had to change. Slowly, he began to fight back. He stopped using one hard day at a time. He worked on his health, his mind, and his purpose. Step by step, he found his way out. Today, he talks about those dark times. He wants people to know how bad it got and how much better it can be. 15. Melissa Etheridge. Melissa Etheridge is known for her voice and strong songs, but her past holds deep pain and hard choices. When she became famous, things looked perfect from the outside, but fame brought stress. Being open about who she was added even more pressure, and in that stress, she found substances. She used them to hide the hurt, to make the pain stop for just a while. But it never really worked. The more she used, the more lost she felt. Each hit made things worse. Her smile faded. Her energy dropped. People close to her noticed. They saw the light in her eyes dim. Then cancer hit. Her body was already weak from substances, and now she had to fight something even bigger. It changed everything. Melissa knew she had to stop. Substances wouldn't help her survive. She started cleaning up, slowly, painfully, but with purpose. Her body healed. Her voice came back. She shared her story with others. She wanted people to see the truth. Recovery wasn't easy. It hurt, but she pushed forward. Her music became more honest. Her words were full of real strength, not just show. 16. Wanda Sykes. Wanda Sykes makes people laugh, but laughter can hide pain. She doesn't talk about it much, but there were times when things got dark for her too. During hard days, she turned to alcohol. It wasn't a wild addiction the world could see, but it was there. Quiet, hidden, growing slowly. Behind the jokes, she was hurting. She drank to numb the stress, to stop thinking for a while. It became a habit, something she reached for without even thinking. She felt alone in her struggle. It didn't explode in the news, but it exploded inside her. She had to choose, keep living like this or make a change. She chose to get better. She took control of her life, one step at a time. Wanda started focusing on health, on clarity, on being real with herself. The person we see now is strong, but that strength was earned. She speaks up for others now. She supports mental health and LGBT+ causes. She knows what it's like to feel lost. 17. Neil Patrick Harris. Neil Patrick Harris seems like he has it all now. A great career, a family, and charm. But years ago, he faced things that left him broken inside. Before he felt safe in his own skin, he used substances and alcohol to escape. It wasn't about fun, it was about hiding. The pressure to be perfect was heavy. So he looked for ways to forget. The more he used, the harder it became to face real life. He didn't crash like some, but his soul felt tired. He felt lost in a world that only wanted smiles. He knew he couldn't live like that forever. Slowly, he stopped. He found new strength in love, in being true to himself, in work that mattered. He rebuilt piece by piece. Now people look up to him, but they don't always see what it took to get here. 18. Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie O'Donnell was always loud and funny on TV, but off-screen, life was harder. She carried pain that few people saw. And that pain led to drinking. She drank to forget, to block out emotions that felt too big. Being famous didn't make things better. It made them worse. The spotlight made her feel like she had to be someone she wasn't. She felt tired, stressed, and alone. Alcohol became her way out, but it never really worked. The more she drank, the more the pain grew. She hit a point where things had to change. She got help. She talked to people. She looked at her pain and decided to face it. It was not easy, but she fought to come back. Slowly, she healed. She started speaking up for others. She wanted people to know it was okay to need help. 19. Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol was one of the biggest names in modern art, known for his bold colors and famous portraits. But behind those bright pictures was a man who was hurting deeply. His life was full of parties and cameras, but inside, he felt alone, lost, and under pressure. Many of the people around him used hard substances, and some say Andy did too, even if he didn't talk about it. They didn't use substances just for fun. They used them to forget pain, silence fear, and feel something when everything felt empty. Fame can look beautiful, but it comes with a heavy cost. Andy didn't like showing his true feelings. He once said he wanted to be like a machine. Maybe that's because machines don't cry, don't get scared, and don't feel pain. But he wasn't a machine. He was a man trying to stay strong while the world pulled him apart. His life was filled with stress from fame, pressure to be perfect, and the fear of never being enough. That stress slowly broke him down. Behind the fame, he lived in fear of being judged, of being different, and of losing everything. 20. Alan Cumming. Alan Cumming is known for being a great actor, a talented writer, and a strong voice for others. But long before the red carpets and TV screens, he was just a little boy, scared inside his own home. His father was cruel and cold, and those early wounds never really healed. Growing up with pain like that leaves marks that don't show on the outside, but hurt just as badly. When he became an adult, those feelings didn't disappear. They followed him like a shadow. Even while he smiled for the cameras, a storm raged inside. Alan turned to alcohol not to have fun, but to feel less. Drinking helped him block the memories, the sadness, and the feeling of not being good enough. At first, it felt like it helped, but soon, it started hurting more than it helped. One drink turned into many. One bad night turned into years of trouble. Alcohol became something he couldn't put down. Even with all the fame, the awards, and the fans, he still felt empty. He hid it well, but deep inside, the pain only grew stronger. The pressure to be perfect in public and quiet in private pushed him deeper into the habit. Eventually, something had to change. He made the hard choice to get help. 21. Sam Smith. Sam Smith is known for their beautiful voice and heart-touching songs, but behind the music was a person in pain. Being in the spotlight came with pressure that few people could handle. As the fame grew, so did the stress, and Sam found themselves turning to alcohol to try and cope. They didn't start drinking to party. They drank to forget. Fame brought attention, but it also brought fear, doubt, and a heavy weight that rested on their shoulders. They often felt judged, not only for who they were, but for how they looked and acted. That judgment hurt deeply. The more the world watched, the more they felt like they were falling apart. Sam didn't always speak up about the pain. Instead, they smiled, performed, and drank quietly. They were drowning inside while the world clapped and cheered. The pressure to be perfect almost broke them. And when it got too heavy, they finally asked for help. Therapy became a turning point. Sam started facing the pain they had kept hidden for so long. They began learning how to care for themselves, how to feel again without hiding behind a drink. But the damage had already done its work. Healing isn't fast, and scars don't fade quickly. Sam now uses their platform to speak about self-love and mental health. Still, the road that led there was hard, long, and painful. 22. Lil Nas X. Lil Nas X became famous very fast. His song went viral, and suddenly the whole world was watching. But fame isn't easy, especially for someone so young. Behind the fun music videos and bright lights was a young man dealing with stress, fear, and pressure. When things became too much, he admitted to trying substances. It wasn't about fun, it was about escape. He felt trapped, confused, and overwhelmed. People expected him to always smile, always perform, and always be okay. But he wasn't. Even though he had millions of fans, he felt alone. The fame made it harder to talk about how he really felt. And while he didn't become fully addicted, the fact that he turned to substances at all says something important. When the pressure gets too loud, even the strongest people can make risky choices. Lil Nas X started writing music that was more honest, more real, and filled with the feelings he once tried to hide. 23. Alexander McQueen. Alexander McQueen was a genius in the world of fashion. His designs shocked people, inspired people, and changed the runway forever. But behind the fame, he was falling apart. McQueen struggled with deep sadness and emotional pain. Being openly gay in a tough industry made life harder for him. He didn't just face stress, he carried the weight of rejection, hurt, and heartbreak. And instead of getting help, he turned to substances. He used substances not to celebrate, but to feel less broken. Over the years, his addiction grew worse. It hurt his health, his mind, and his relationships. The people around him watched as he drifted further away. He created beautiful things while feeling ugly inside. In 2010, the pain became too much. He took his own life, and with that, the world lost a bright creative light that had been dimmed for years by silent suffering. 24. Ricky Martin. Ricky Martin was a star loved by millions. His songs played on every radio. But behind the fame, he faced his own struggles. Coming out to the world wasn't easy. There was stress, fear, and a deep sadness he kept inside. To deal with it, Ricky turned to alcohol. He drank to forget, to feel peace. But it only worked for a little while. At first, he kept it quiet. He smiled for cameras, performed on stage, and tried to hide what was really going on. But the stress didn't go away. And slowly, the drinking became a problem. He was hurting, and alcohol became his escape. Over time, he realized he had to stop. He chose to build a better life, not just for himself, but for his family. He wanted peace, not pain. 25. The Vivian. The Vivian, born James Lee Williams, was loved by many in the drag community. They were strong, funny, and full of life. But even stars can fall. Behind the glitter, they were fighting something dangerous, ketamine addiction. It wasn't just one time, it happened again and again. The Vivian ended up in the hospital many times. Friends tried to help. Even an ex-husband stood by their side. But sometimes the pain is just too strong. They tried to get better. They wanted to be healthy. But addiction doesn't let go easily. In January 2025, the Vivian died at just 32 years old, a heart attack caused by the same substance they had fought so hard to leave behind. The news shocked fans. It was a reminder that addiction doesn't care how famous or talented you are.